approval of the minutes of the meeting of the 26th of July from the board. May I have a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
So moved.
A second, please. All in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. The next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard on items that are not on our agenda presently. If you have something to submit to the board, please advise your name as well as limit your comments to 3 minutes out of respect for the time that we need for other matters for the board. Is there any citizens that would like to speak on any matters that are not on tonight's agenda?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
My name's Gary.
Come up to the podium, identify yourself, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief. I'm not sure if this is on the agenda or not. I didn't see it there, so excuse me if it is, but my question is just Delaware Park, what the situation is, when you think it'll be finished or open. That's...
If I may answer, we hope to be finished by February 15th. The only things we're lacking is the playground that needs to be installed, and that will begin installing on the 30th of this month, take about a week to 10 days. And the other thing is the tennis court and the pickleball courts need to be lined and surfaced and nets put up. And those two things will be done, so we're looking at it opening about February 15th to be safe. I'll open it as soon as those are in. I'll promise you that.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Very good.
Could you identify yourself for the record, though, as who you are?
Gary? My name's Gary. I'm a citizen of Clearwater.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other citizens to speak to an item that is not on tonight's agenda? If not, I believe we have one email from outside that needs to be read to us.
Yes, Melissa Stamos submitted an e-comment. I am writing to state my vehement opposition of leasing Marymount Park as part of the lease agreement with the Air Park. The park is the cornerstone of our neighborhood. It is the only open space we have. Our children play on playground and basketball courts. We hold neighborhood meetings there, walk our dogs, and meet our neighbors. It is despicable if the city gives a space away, as it was never part of the lease discussions, so the public was involved in regarding the Air Park.
Art, do you have any comment upon that? Because I'm not certain about whether it was or was not part of the Air Park agreement and therefore had...
Yes, sir. There may be some confusion about that. Marymount Park has always been in the location that it is now. There's a green space there that's called Airport Road that divides it off from the property that was just, we gave a lease on the Air Park. There are two distinct different pieces, parcels. If you go on the website, it looks at as one land all the way across there. But in reality, it is not. And it has been zoned. As a matter of fact, I have some zoning maps that go all the way back to 1984, that show that the zoning there was for Air Park property. Let me just make sure. The zoning map of 1994 actually has Marymount Park separate from where the Air Park is. Right. So it could get confusing, but we're not taking the park away. Continue to have a wonderful park in that neighborhood, and so hopefully that will alleviate some of their concerns and fears about that.
I think that's a very adequate explanation for the situation, because I myself had heard from some citizens that were concerned that it was part of the property being declared surplus for the Air Park leasing, and it's good to know that it is not considered part of that, so very good.
Yeah, I think the problem is we go and look it up on the property appraiser's office, it looks like the whole area is a green area.
Yes.
But the ordinance actually said a portion of that piece of property.
Excellent.
And that portion is the portion that's always been the Air Park.
Excellent. So Marymount Park will remain for the residents of the area?
Yes.
I don't believe we have any other comments from outside, correct? I'd like to move on to the agenda itself, if we could, please. Item 4-1, a discussion of the January Parks and Recreation Project Update Report, which we all should have copies of, and I think the latest update was dated the 3rd of January.
Yeah, the updates, as you will see, and I won't go over all of them, but some of them I'd like to give you, just, I know that y'all can read through them, but for example, the Cordy Campbell Trail Overpass, the update there, FDOT was looking for additional funding to do the improvements to the bridge, but just, the update says here that we were waiting for different additional funding. FDOT, or Florida Department of Transportation, has come up with that funding, so they are proceeding with the quote-unquote fish design. If the board members are new and haven't seen that fish design, we'll certainly can bring it back and give you a copy of that. But it's going to be a nice entryway into the city of Clearwater. The next project I'd like to
I
update
have
for
one-
you is the Delaware Park. I already shared with you about that.
Art, before you go off this overpass, I have one question myself
Yes.
I got on that. So therefore, rather than seeking an additional $230,000 for design work from the city, it's going to proceed without any further funding by the city, is that correct?
That is correct. The funding will come from
From
somewhere in FDOT.
Right.
In their money, but they came up with it.
And my understanding is previously, the city by unanimous vote, the council voted $250,000 for the design work and another $750,000 for construction. So the city's commitment has already been made, and this is not going to be required. Excellent. That's the only question I have.
That is correct. We will have to go back to the council on the final $750,000, but verbally they have committed it, and it has been in the minutes as such.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And Delaware Park, really, I've already given you an update on that. We are looking forward to the opening. It's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
And if you haven't gone, we'll certainly take anybody out for a tour to show you the park before it opens. The other one I'd like to update is the Sailing Center dock replacement. At the Sailing Center, the south dock is totally complete. They will be putting the boat lift in. That will be tomorrow morning. Then it'll be totally complete. And they're working now on the north dock, and hopefully that will be completed by the end of February. So basically 4 weeks, they'll have that all complete and be done. The last one that I'd like to report on is the Enterprise Dog Park Agility Course. That project is completed. If you've not gone out there, it basically was an agility course, and we hadn't been able to put it back since we did the renovations out there, but it is now complete and in use quite a bit.
Very good. Do any board members have any questions regarding the project status as of now? Thank you very much for that update, Mr. Cater. We'll move on to item number 4.2, nuisance and exotic plant survey of city parks. I believe, Martin, this is an item that you have added to the agenda, so I'd
Right.
appreciate if you'd lead the discussion on it.
Okay, as some of you may know, I've been doing aquatic plant control and nuisance species maintenance and management for 40 years in this area, and I'm a private consultant, and I'm really passionate about the nuisance species that are in this area and throughout Florida. And I just thought that, I brought this up last year but didn't get much traction, but I just am pretty passionate about the fact that we should probably have a survey of all of the 109 parks and have an idea of what we're dealing with, how much, or what the extent of nuisance species is, because I live up in northern Clearwater, and there's a park up there that has a lot of Kogan grass and a lot of Brazilian pepper and a lot of, there's just a whole bunch of different stuff in this park, and I just feel like it would be good to identify what the problem is, then come up with a plan to attack it, because it just seems like if we're stewards of this land, we should be taking care of it. And so I just wanted to bring it up again and get people to think about it. And I know it costs money to do that, but it's, I think it's part of what the Parks Department should be doing to maintain these parks in the natural state, because that's the whole idea, is use native plants and encourage them and try to get rid of the nuisance species, because they will take over. Air potato and pepper and all these different species, they can really cause a problem, so that was my idea.
It is an excellent idea and something that we are aware of, and it is a problem, and especially our undeveloped parks or those that are around any water. As you know, if you even go over the Memorial Causeway, with all the mangroves mixed in there, you also have problems. And the same way with any of the trail systems we have, Bayshore Trail, that's just packed with peppers and all kinds of things that will just root everything else out. It's difficult to get them out when they get big. I do know that. And you have to have a specific chemical on them to kill them. What we have in the budget, though, we're looking at an environmental area and to maybe do an environmental survey of all of the parks that we have out there, the undeveloped parks. So we are looking at that. I don't know when we'll be able to get to it, but I think it's a great idea, and certainly we'd be looking to you for some other advice about that as we go out. Okay?
Love to help.
Any further comments from members of the board on that item?
Is there a way we can have maybe a page that identifies these things? Maybe that people can report instances of them, or, I mean, there's a lot of parks, and do you know where all these things are? And maybe when somebody's walking around, they can, I don't know.
I haven't
Just an
been to all the
idea.
parks by any means, but just where I live, just a few of the parks up in that area. North Clearwater countryside area, there's a lot of nuisance. What do you mean, a page?
Like on the, I don't know, on the park site, an identification page, say.
Like a C-click
You're
fix.
at a very remote park that maybe somebody doesn't, maybe you don't know where all the.
Well, all of our staff members do. They're very well versed in that, and
Okay.
when we
So
get
you
an
know
opportunity,
where
we
all-
remove them.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have the manpower. That's the issue right now, to get all of them out. We actually have volunteer days when we have the public come to and help us get rid of these environmental, peppers and different other kind of. But I understand what you're saying, and perhaps it's something we can look at, maybe on the website or something like that, to notify the public of what invasive species are, as well as animals. That's an issue too. There's a lot of feral animals that are out there in our parks that shouldn't be there. I won't mention Muskogee ducks because a lot of people love Muskogee ducks. Me for one, I don't, but that's okay. They cause a lot of issues and problems in our parks. So we can look at that, maybe do it as an education piece or something for our parks. Good suggestion.
I would be surprised if any of our parks do not have nuisance or exotic plants in it. Martin and I actually went to Forest Run Park to take a look at that with Samantha, and it has them throughout, potato plants, all kinds of stuff. And it's a tremendous problem that, as Art was saying, can easily overwhelm the finances that we have for parks and recreation, as well as the manpower. It's a big problem, and hopefully this survey will help us get a handle on it. Any further comments on item 4.2? We'll move on to item 4.3, update on the Coachman Park Governance Stakeholder Group activity. This is an item that I submitted, and I was just curious as to where that stands at this time. Jim was keeping us up to date with respect to what they were doing and what was involved, and I just thought maybe a brief update would be
Yeah, I
appropriate.
think the committee had a meeting in October of last year. I think that's how he reported it. And
Right.
I asked Jim today where they were on that. And apparently at that meeting, they decided, since there were so many staff involved, new staff that have been allocated to the park, programming staff as well as maintenance staff, that they would basically have a means or a way to share with the public of what would like to be down there. In other words, they're not going to have per se a conservancy right now.
Right,
is what they were
right.
saying. But they're going to get out to the public, and one of the best ways, and one of the things that will be in my report, is the master plan.
Master plan. I was thinking
Future
that.
master plan, which will be in parcel what the Conservancy would do.
Right, very good. Thank you very much. I was just looking for an update, as you've just given it to us, as to where we stand on that activity. Item 4.4, or beg your pardon, any comments or questions from any advisory board member on that item? Item 4.4, board discussion on the new proposal to revamp the Phillies training complex. And this is an item I also added, and the only question I had was that for the longest time, the city and the residents and the board were aware of a approximately $79 million upgrade that was being looked at for the complex. And then just recently, the Phillies themselves announced, and the city was aware that there's now a $300 million upgrade that they're looking at. And my only question was, is the $79 million thoughts now supplanted by the $300 million, or is it a separate issue from what the Phillies are proposing? And I just was confused a bit on that.
I can't answer that for you. I
Okay.
am not aware. I don't know that, whether it's separate or part. I do know the Phillies are looking at some major expansion of their facilities
Yes.
themselves.
Right.
They would pay for, but I'm not sure of the funding yet. And Jim and I just found out yesterday, so I didn't get the update on that one. So
Right.
I can get back with you, though.
Okay, that would be good. And like I say, I'm just curious
I will.
about the separation, or is it included in that? Okay. Any questions from any other board member on that? Item 4.5, board discussion of the funding for Tool Design LLC to develop a master plan. That is also an item that I added from notes that were sent out to the board members by Ellen. As I understand it, Tool Design has made a proposal to the city to coordinate and basically assist us with developing that master plan for a sum of $268,735. And my question was, has this been presented to council to approve the funding yet, or is it anticipated to be done in the near future?
It has gone to the council, and they have approved it.
They have approved it?
Yes.
Okay. And the detail that was attached from Ellen about their proposal from Tool Design is 28 pages long, and it's rather detailed as to what they will do and what they will provide. So it certainly sounds that it will be money well spent, and the city and the Parks and Recreation Department will certainly benefit from it. So I'm glad to see that it's been approved then.
Yes.
Any questions from any other member of the board on that item?
When are they going to start work on it? What's the schedule?
We have already started our first meeting in-house, and we will have set out an entire schedule for that. That was in one of my reports too. Basically, y'all will be very involved in that
Right.
process. We'll certainly give you all the invitations to the dates in which we'll have several public meetings. We'll have surveys that go out to the public, and we would definitely need your input on the entire master plan. And we'll bring that master plan back to you for review, as well as afterwards, the city council.
Right. The proposal from Tool Design is, like I said, very comprehensive. It's 28 pages long and very comprehensive, so I think they're going to do a great job, and there will be public meetings and heavy involvement of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board on the activities.
I had a comment on that
Okay.
too. I looked at the scope and it looked very organized, like you thought, and well thought out. I was wondering, I didn't know that there's a 20-year master plan. I was wondering, the previous 20-year master plan, did it meet the expectations of the city? And if not, what could have been done better? And then is tool design, does it seem like they're going to do that better in these areas?
One of the issues is the last update on the current 20-year plan was in 2013.
Right.
So you figure we've gone 10 years since then. Definitely need to update it. I have gone through personally and seen all of the proposals that we made back in 2002 and all the way in 2013. I've looked at those, and I can give you a list of all the things that we said we were planning to do, and the things that the community wanted at that time, and I can show you the things that were actually done. I can share with you, and there was quite a bit. I mean, it's pretty astounding. With a plan, you can do a whole lot if you have it planned out beforehand. Of course, the big issue is funding. And of course, that all has to go through the council each year for the funding on that.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on that item? Item number 4.6, discuss plans to accommodate the recent surge in pickleball players. And Jason, I believe this is an item that you had added to the agenda, so I'll ask you to lead off the discussion on that item.
Yeah, I did bring that up, and pickleball is, in recent years, really exploded. And I was just wondering what kind of plans the city has to add more pickleball courts, because they're definitely in high demand. And I see that Del Oro, you're going to add 3 there, and I think that's great. But I was wondering if there's any other plans.
Correct, and we're also, we're adding 3 pickleball courts at Sewell Road Park. Those will be done hopefully, again, by the end of February, maybe March, probably March, those will be added. And then we hope to add 4 new pickleball courts at the McKay Playfield. After the fire station is built and opened, we'll go in and redo all of McKay Playfield. So that would be dedicated 4 pickleball courts there, 2 at Ross Norton and 3 at Sewell Road. So that would be a total of 9 new courts. We realize that there is a need for them. We also realize that while painting lines on courts allows you to play on the courts, it also causes some issues with the tennis players and the pickleball players being on the same court at the same time. And just so for your information, we have 36 hard courts around the city. I'm talking about tennis courts now. 36 tennis courts. And of those 36, we have painted lines for pickleball players on 20 of them. So it's a little bit more than half that we have at least painted lines on one of the pickleball courts. I know it's a concern for the people that love pickleball, and they would like to see lines on all the tennis courts. The problem is the tennis court players have issues with that when all of a sudden we're going to be booted out, so to speak. So we're just playing a balancing act right now. The key is to get enough pickleball courts, separate pickleball courts, so people can play.
I agree. I've seen some friction there too, with putting the lines on the tennis courts, and I think standalone courts definitely is a good.
The other issue that causes too, pickleball players, their net is lower than the tennis net. And oftentimes our staff will go out and they'll see where somebody has tied the net down so that they could play pickleball. And then they left it tied down.
Yeah.
They should have do it if they're going to do that.
One of the things that I've noticed at the Countryside Rec Center is inside on the basketball courts, they have organized pickleball teams, and more, I go there on a regular basis, if you will, and I would say it's almost 50-50 that you either see basketball games being played, and not just for the leagues or the young kids, but older adults or pickleball players playing. So I think where they can, and Countryside Rec Center has certainly done that, they've converted the basketball courts throughout the week to where pickleball players can come in. They know what times they are and so forth, but they're always very well attended. So there's another effort to try and expand the amount of pickleball opportunities that are there for
At
people.
Clearwater Beach Rec Center, there also is a basketball court, and they have
Right.
3 pickleball courts on the basketball court there, plus 1 on 3 of the tennis courts. They have requested to have so many people there. There's around 150, I think, that come out there and play, and it's just so crowded, there's not
Right.
room for them. And I know they've requested that we line those courts as well, all 3 of them, but doing that would preclude any tennis, at least during the same time. We'd have a conflict there, so
Right.
we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Are there any further comments on that particular item? What I'd like to do is disrupt the agenda sequence, if I could, and move from item 4.6 down to item 4.10, which is a presentation to the Parks and Recreation Board by Board Member Shannon Kelly, on the various parks that we have in the city, 110 of them, I recall. And it is a good lead-in to a couple of items further down on the agenda. So if there are no objections, I would like to move to item 4.10 and have Kelly make her presentation, and then resume our discussion with item 4.7.
Sure.
I'd like to ask a question first.
Yes.
Reading through the notes for the last meeting that we had, I somehow missed that urban forestry is being moved to the new Public Works Department. Somehow that didn't sink in. Does that include not only the cutting of trees, but planting of new trees?
Yes, and it would be also, the Arbor Day would also be their issue. Now, Parks and Rec still, we plant trees in our parks.
Okay.
We plant
'Cause-
landscaping.
Okay, because that's
Flowers.
part of that presentation, so I didn't know if I should skip over that part or still,
No, that's okay. I mean, I think it's good to, I mean,
okay, okay.
trees are trees, you know, we plant them, and the city in general has, the planning department requires planting of trees when you're doing new developments as well, so, you know, that,
Okay.
yeah. It's a maze.
You should enter. You can just. Okay, so a little bit is overlapping from when I was a citizen presenting. But in 1961, a water tower was built on the Kings Highway Rec Center land. And you can see all the trees that were there at that time. Lots and lots of trees. And I moved to Clearwater next to the water tower in 1985. And I lived in the same house for most of those years. And there is the city park right next to my house in 1985. So 34 years later, here is the park on Google Street View. And you can see how much it changed. Every few years, more and more trees are cut down here, with none planted to take their place. This truck, it's a heart-stopping sight every time I see it. This might not be the same truck, you know, that cuts the trees, but I see the branches that lifts up. Off in the distance, you see a dry retention pond, and obviously trees can't be planted there, and it does help with flooding. But 2 more trees were cut down last year. That's the dry retention pond. Some parks need their trees back. The top 10 reasons to plant trees, and I'm sure you know some, but just to reiterate, trees provide oxygen that we need to breathe. Trees clean the air. Trees provide shade and cool down homes, streets and cities up to 10 degrees. Trees filter water and slow storm surge and flooding. Trees prevent soil erosion. Trees increase property values. And I didn't know this, trees can save homeowners up to 25% on energy bills. Trees help buffer noise pollution. Trees provide homes to wildlife. And trees are beautiful and boost our mental and physical health. That's Lorax, and he speaks for the trees. Here's something I'm also passionate about, creating videos of Clearwater's parks. This is Amber. When I started my website about 4.5 years ago, Amber and I decided to explore Clearwater, and we visited all 110 parks in Clearwater, and 109 of them are city parks, and there's 1 county park. I discovered many parks within 2 miles of my home that I never knew existed in 36 years. Now, if I didn't know of these 4 parks within 2 miles of my home, how many other Clearwater residents don't know about parks that are near to them? This top one is within a mile of my home. So here are some of the parks that Clearwater has. And there's so many of them, and they're beautiful. I want to point out this park. It is 20 acres, and I didn't explore it. This is the only part of it that I saw. And why? It's because someone told me that a giant alligator lives here. And I didn't want either Amber or I to become an hors d'oeuvre. So this is all I saw of this park. So wouldn't it be nice to have a video of this park and what it looks like in the inside? This next park is a 30-acre jungle with no public access that I know about. And I just discovered that Mr. Cater here has been 42 years with the Clearwater Parks Department, and I just can't wait to pick his brain about some of these things, the questions that I have. But wouldn't it be wonderful to see what the inside of this 30-acre park looks like? I'm sure it's just teeming with wildlife and all kinds of things. Have you seen the inside of this park, Mr. Cater? I can't imagine.
Just take off in the woods, you can see it.
Well, I'm sure there's some. But this is all I've seen of this park. This park is 2 acres, and this is all I've seen of. So these videos would show residents and potential visitors places they may not know about, and they could be shared on social media. Now, the 2 on the right were done by the city of Clearwater. This Enterprise Dog Park aerial video was done before the renovation, and it's an awesome video. It shows you what Enterprise Dog Park looks like from the air. And Glen Oaks Park, it's not such a great video, but it shows you what Glen Oaks looks like. And the 2 on the left, the top one is something that I hired somebody to do for my website. And the bottom one is I got permission from Zach Perry of Taste and See Tampa Bay, and he walked from Clearwater Beach to Caladesi Island, and I don't have the stamina to do that. So I got to see what this looks like, and it was an awesome video. Videos could be made by city employees, interns, or independent contractors. If you had an intern do it, it's free. An employee, they're getting paid anyway, so it's free. This next biking video starts at the Courtney Campbell Causeway and follows all of the bike trails to Clearwater Beach from bay to beach, something an elderly or disabled person wouldn't normally be able to experience. So I had a biker with a GoPro on his bike. He started at the middle of the Courtney Campbell Causeway, and he biked all the way to Clearwater Beach, and I paid him $700. And he followed all the biking trails, the Reem Wilson Trail and all the biking trails, and he rode, I couldn't have done that, so it was an awesome video. And as you know, right, well, it's not there anymore. Well, it's on the screen. Bright and beautiful, bay to beach. That's the slogan of Clearwater. And you got to see it. And I hired Wayne Cathell. He's an awesome videographer. I paid him $125 to do an aerial video of Sandkey Park. So it doesn't have to be expensive. But wouldn't it be nice if we had videos of all of these parks so people can actually see these parks? Now, some parks are very small. Now, it wouldn't make much sense to do a video of Ann Circle Park because there's a bush, there's a tree, there's a flagpole. That's it. Bay Esplanade, that's it. That's it. So you could do a slideshow of these tiny parks. But people could see what they look like. And Clearwater has some really, really small parks. McClellan Circle is 0.22 acres. That's it. Sunburst Park is 0.11 acres. That's it. Bay Esplanade is 0.15 acres. That's it. Should a triangle median really be considered a park? Possibly, if there are benches or equipment on it. This one is 0.21 acres, and it's a very nice park. There were a lot of people there that day. It was really nice. The end. Thanks.
Kelly made this presentation to us, I believe, to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board last year, I believe. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to present it to the City Council, but it was most interesting, particularly the fact that there's 110 parks within the city, and there's quite a few of them that are quite small. But now we can kind of see that from this presentation, the next couple of items on the agenda is a good segue to a discussion of those items, so I think we'll just take those one at a time and continue the discussion. But thank you very much for the information and the presentation. Item 4.7, provide direction on tiny parcels being considered city parks. The one thing that struck me is that as they are developing the master plan, this is an item that might very well be part of that consideration, or at least it would provide a forum for input by citizens, and certainly, you know, the board members will be involved in it as well. I don't know what direction it will go in. I don't know what may be accomplished, but certainly there would be a forum for that discussion to begin. I don't know if that would be adequate enough, or we want to take it up as a separate issue here at the board. I don't know what the board feels about that.
I think one of the issues we have, the reason we have 110 parks, is it's historical in nature, that when developers come in, sometimes there are some parklands that are actually zoned OSR, which is open space recreation, that are even smaller than this. And what happened is a developer might not have had a little piece of property that they had next to their house, that they couldn't use for anything. So they said, well, we'll just donate it to the city. Right. And back then, for whatever reason, somebody accepted it. So we ended up with it. So we did, I know that I have been here for a while, and I know that I've been a part with Mr. Reem Wilson when he had some of the first master plans, and we looked at strategically locating properties and parks in certain areas of the city. And the best I know, the first park that was dedicated was Valencia Park, was the first one that was given to the city with a 10% gift, so to speak. It was a policy by the council back then. And since then, in that area, you can look at it. I know when you went out and visited them, they're very close together. You can just walk across the street and you find another park, and you walk, around the block, you find another park. Those were developed that way because the developer had to give 10% of their land or money in lieu thereof for a park. And so they would just cut out a piece of property and give that to the city. And so some of the cases, we have parks that have never been developed. Some we purchased so that they could be developed at a later time as a neighborhood park. Right. Neighborhood park generally has a playground, benches, sidewalks, maybe a tennis court or a basketball court, those types of things. But all those things, as you know, cost money, and it's not the initial cost, it's the maintenance costs that really get you on there. So certainly we get requests almost weekly for benches or picnic tables or a new playground, or, so the master plan is going to be a tremendous help to us and looking at some of these properties like that.
When were a lot of these donated to the city? Was this back in the 60s and 70s?
Well, actually, yes, some of them were before then, but actually, most of the parkland came in the 70s, 80s, 90s is where we got most of the parkland. Because back then, there was a lot of land available. As you saw from your slides, you had orange trees in your neighborhood there. All the trees, that you had there. So there were orange groves all around.
The reason I'm asking is because I get involved with permitting of developments from the environmental side, and anytime that there's a common area, it's usually becomes a function of the homeowners association to take care of. And I know maintenance is probably your biggest cost to mow, edge, and blow all these areas. It costs a lot of money to keep them up. And is there any thoughts to donating them back to the neighborhood and letting them take care of them as far as maintenance? Or is that not even considered?
I don't think that the neighborhoods would want that. What they do.
They want a freebie, right?
We do have an adopt a park program and an adopt a median program. And many of them, like Morningside, the Meadows, if you notice the entryways to those subdivisions, they have landscaped areas in the front. And they do an adopt agreement with us and they maintain those areas.
Okay.
Unfortunately, like at Morningside, there are literally miles and miles of medians in the middle of the road with trees and grass, which makes it very nice. But obviously, what happens is developers came back in. Now, that was in the 60s. A lot of the 60s came in, developed the areas, made these medians, and in the end, it's in the right-of-way. So who takes care of the right-of-way? The city of Clearwater. And so that's why we're left with that. I think we've gotten smarter through the years, and we're doing some things from a planning standpoint, and being involved in that, see how the rules and regulations have changed somewhat since then.
You can certainly see where a developer back then would certainly just mark off 10% of the land being developed, donate it to the city would accept it, and nobody would be able to do anything with it, i.e. through either finances and or personnel, and that's how it just stayed there. That certainly explains to me how that could have happened, and certainly is going to remain, undeveloped, if you will. I also think that within the city of Clearwater, the neighborhood parks have tended to be the thrust of the activity, so they can be developed to support residents in that neighborhood and are kept up with, basketball courts, the playgrounds, this, that, and the other thing. And in many, many cases, because of limited funding, that's where you may want to be putting your request for upgrades and things like that, as opposed to putting benches or whatever in an area that nobody may ever sit down and look at anything. You'd rather spend the money on a neighborhood park, either a new one or upgrading it. So we can certainly understand how that happened, and it can also be brought up for discussion as the input from the community on the master plan.
That's good. The countryside area, when they came in, U.S. Homes developed that area. They were required to give 10% of their land, all that land, in parks. And so they donated, that's Woodgate, Countryside Community Park, Forest Run
Forest
Park.
Run.
There were several of them that basically they were cut out for that old development and given to the city at that time.
Right.
So, yeah.
And those up there in that area, Woodgate, Forest Run, Morningside, are just beautiful. They're beautiful parks, well used by the citizens. I was part of the Forest Run Homeowners Association in the early 90s when that park was donated and developed, and it's used by quite a number of citizens now. So, any further questions or comments on that particular item? Item 4.8, develop a policy of planting new trees to replace removed trees. Perhaps before we get into this item, I noticed something today that I thought was quite interesting, and it is where Clearwater's tree assessment and inventory program has been put on hold officially. Residents had been complaining about trees that were being removed, perhaps unnecessarily, not part of a right-of-way consideration or disease. And these trees had been part of a study that was done by an outside firm contracted by the city, and they were tagging them for removal for a variety of reasons. And evidently enough residents were complaining about that removal that the city's taken a position just recently that they're going to put that program on hold for further review. They want to take a look at the criteria that was developed and to modify it as necessary to be more applicable to Clearwater's needs. And therefore, trees that would be identified to be removed would be removed for right reasons, if you will, right-of-way concerns, disease, et cetera. But that was a good response, I think, by the city to the residents complaining about that issue. And I just noticed that the other day as I saw some emails about it. Two things to keep in mind relative to that topic. On the 30th of January, Monday, there's going to be the standard work session at 9 a.m., where specifically the Clearwater Public Works is going to discuss this hold and what their proposals are for going forward. So if anybody here or in the audience listening and watching has an interest in the tree situation, I would strongly suggest you attend that work session on the 30th of January. You're not able to comment, but at least you're able to get educated and learn what Public Works thinks they will do. That's on a Monday. However, just a few days later, on the 2nd of February, there is a council meeting. And at that council meeting, just like ourselves, there is a opportunity for citizens to comment upon the agenda item. And that item will be on the agenda. And if you did attend the work session or watch it on TV, you'll understand all the decisions that were made and why they were made. But again, that gives you an opportunity to make comment upon the trees that are being taken out of the city of Clearwater and how they're being replaced. So I would strongly encourage anybody that has that interest to attend both sessions and to certainly speak up at the council meeting on the 2nd of February. But I just learned that today, so I wanted to lead into that before there was any further discussion about planting new trees. So I'll open it up to the rest of the board to make whatever comments they would like to make. Are there any further comments?
Where is that January 30th meeting?
Right here.
Okay.
Right here. The work sessions are outstanding, and that is where items that will be on the agenda at that Thursday council meeting are discussed with the details provided to the council members by the various city departments, what they're proposing, why they're proposing it, this, that, and the other thing. And there's a back and forth discussion about the detail, why this, why that, and so forth. Very informative. They go on for a bit of time, but it's most educational. You can sit at home and watch it on television as well. And those items will be on the council agenda on that Thursday, and you will have an opportunity as a private citizen or as a group to go up and speak on an agenda item that you may have heard the details about on that Monday. So it's in this very room here, 9 o'clock.
I just have one comment. My idea was a tree for a tree, but another citizen told me it might be a better idea. It's not really equitable to plant a tree if a large, well-established tree is being cut down. It might be more equitable if inches for inches is what she suggested, and I thought that was a good idea.
Right.
Like if a large diameter tree was being cut down, maybe several smaller trees, inches wise.
Right.
I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see what the Public Works Group comes up with, because they at least addressed the problem by putting the program on hold, and I'm sure they're giving it some good thought for that work session coming up. So I plan to be there, hopefully in person, but I certainly will listen to it relative to the tree situation and other items that'll be discussed at the work session. If there's no more comments on that particular item, I'll move on to the next one, item 4.9. Discussion to create video tours of each city park, as you have suggested in your presentation. And I did notice that when Ellen sent out the agenda to us and the meeting notification, that she did attach 2 videos to that notification. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not, but the 2 videos were the Enterprise Dog Park aerial view prior to the renovation, which the renovation is outstanding. That's up in my neighborhood, and it is a superb dog park. And the second one was a virtual tour of the Glen Oaks Park. And that's kind of leading into what you were suggesting, and might be something that could be discussed also as part of the master plan when it comes up with input. Always coming up is going to be the financial resources and the personnel to do things. It doesn't mean you do nothing, but it also might mean you can't do as much as you would like. So you may have to selectively pick what you're going to do. But
I think it's a wonderful idea,
Yeah.
and certainly our public communications department with the city, is looking and doing more of that. So that was that one part they did, but there's so many more that we do have that we just haven't put online. And so I think your idea is wonderful, and we'll certainly do what we can in that regard. Yeah, thank you.
all right. Any further comments or questions on that particular item? The next item of business, 4.11, is the election of officers for the 2023 Parks and Recreation Board. I'll open that up for discussion, nomination, however you would like to proceed on that.
Right now, you are serving as the
Vice Chairman.
vice chairman. Our chairman retired or quit last year, or is he still around?
No, I believe he's still with us. He was just unable to attend
Okay.
tonight's meeting. So, yeah, Mark is the chairman presently. I'm the vice chairman presently.
Does he have any desire to keep being the chairman, or we don't know?
I really can't speak for him myself, no.
Okay.
No. Are we able to make a nomination of Mark in his absence to be
Yes.
chairman?
He's not here. Go ahead. Nominate him again.
Yeah, I think what you want to consider too is, someone that is able to be here on a
Right.
consistent basis and be able to lead the board in that process.
Right.
And certainly, not that Mr. Rodriguez has necessarily not done that, it's just that he couldn't come tonight for
Right.
various reasons. But certainly, that's up to the board.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was chairman once before, then Bruce Rector was chairman, and now Mark is chairman a second time that I'm aware of, if you will.
I think-
And I mean, I do know, I'm not sure where he does work, but I do know it's an issue for him to get here on time, and in this particular case, he was not able to make it, but it's something he has done when he's able to before without a problem, so. If someone would like to nominate Mr. Rodriguez for the chairman of 2023 going forward, we'll certainly entertain that.
Is there anybody else who might want it?
Thanks.
My term is ending in a couple of more meetings, so
Ah,
it won't be me, you'll get somebody new here.
okay.
So, maybe you would want it?
I would not seek it, but I would not turn it down if I'm nominated, to be honest about it.
Okay, well, so there's.
I'll speak on
possibly two.
behalf of Mr. Rodriguez, enthusiastically embracing it
Yeah.
perhaps, because he's not here,
Right. And, Kelly, and
right?
anybody else, Angela, you interested?
No.
Well, we do need two, so.
I'll nominate Mr. Rafferty for his, for chair, sorry.
I'll nominate him as well.
So is that a second?
Second.
Second, I'm sorry.
So the nomination of myself as the chairman, we'll put it to a vote by the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Looks like I'm elected going forward. We now have to nominate and select a vice chairman.
I'll nominate Mr. Rodriguez for vice chair.
What is his term coming up? Because Mark and I have been
Oh,
together a lot.
Yeah, he
so
could be,
He
yeah.
might be timing out.
Yeah, he could be timing out as well. I didn't even think about that, honestly, till you mentioned it.
I want to look into that. Maybe,
I would like, do we have to act upon that nomination before we can entertain another nomination?
You can discuss. Right now, there's not a motion on the floor. Oh, well, actually, it hasn't been seconded, so unless it's not seconded, it can just
Okay.
move on.
I myself would like to nominate Mr. Hood for the vice chairman. He's been on this board as long as I can recall. He's been a participant and an active member of the board, and I think in the absence of the chairman, whenever that might occur, he would be an excellent fill-in to fill the role as vice chairman. And for that reason and his interest in activities in Parks and Recreation, I would like to nominate Jason as the vice chairman going forward in 2023. Can I get a second for that?
I'll second
All in favor, say aye.
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 Who was the second?
Kelly,
Okay.
all opposed? Unanimous once again, Mr. Hood. Congratulations. The next item on the agenda is old business items. I'll lead off with an old business item that I ran across, and I spoke to Mr. Helios about it, and that was in our July 3rd meeting, I beg your pardon, in our July meeting, the 3-score senior softball group made a proposal to us in person about putting a Hall of Fame plaque at the Eddie C. Moore Complex, as well as a National League alumni sign on the Sid Lichten Fields area. And according to Jim, I asked him about this separately. He said, I believe we are waiting for the three-score senior softball people to give options to Parks and Recreation as to what those will be, and they can be put up at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct, we're still waiting.
Okay. So I think I'd like to take the opportunity, since they did take the opportunity to appear in person and make the proposal to the Parks and Recreation team, that the Parks and Recreation Department is prepared to go forward with that. If they could, 3-score senior softball club president or an officer needs to let Parks and Recreation know which they would like to do, and I'm sure it'll be taken care of. That is the only piece of old business that I had. Does anybody else have any old business that they would like to bring up at this time? Moving on to item number 6, the director's report, and in the absence of Mr. Helios, I believe Mr. Cater will provide that to us.
As you all know, Mr. Helios, and I appreciate the responses from many of the board members, wrote him back. He put that in the email. He would not be here. He has taken another position and will be leaving the city on February the 10th. So we all wish him very well in his he's going into the private sector, which is new for him, because he's generally been in working for cities, municipalities, pretty much all of his career. The other item was the master plan, which we've already talked about and brought up. We're just excited about that. Tool Design Group is a very good group. They're out of Orlando. They have done many master plans. The most recent one has been for Sarasota County, and Sarasota, we're very impressed by that. And if you can go online and actually look at that, so you can see the type of thing that they did for Sarasota that they'll be doing for us as well. So that's good. The only other item I did put in your packet was about impact fees. It's open space recreation impact fees. I don't know how familiar you are with impact fees. Most people, don't. It's kind of like planning, put it on the side until you really, to understand it. So what I did is I have a little white paper here, and I know that y'all can read it, but I'd like to just go through it real quickly just to let you know what that is. The city of Clearwater, we've talked around it tonight, has had impact fees since probably the 1970s. And basically because of the growth that we were having, we had a lot of land available. Basically, there was a policy, a city council policy that required the developers to give 10% of their land to the city of Clearwater. It dealt with a number of acres, so that's why we got some little parks, because they didn't have big developments back then. But in 1983, we decided to codify that into actually an ordinance rather than a policy. And so since 1983, we have had an open space element of our impact fees. We've done minor changes in there. However, as you can imagine, we haven't had any major changes, and we need to do that. And so we hope to take before the city council very soon, within the next 2 months, a proposal that would, on September the 1st, 2023, would adopt a new ordinance in recreation or impact fees. What's an impact fee? An impact fee is paid by a homeowner or a developer to fund the cost of providing new recreation facilities and/or land in the city. In other words, you have a certain standard right now, and the question is, do you want new residents as they come in to pay their fair share to keep you at the same standard level? Basically, that's what an impact fee does. It allows those new people to be a part of that and not to impact on the existing facilities that you have and the land that you have. Where are impact fees? Basically, impact fees are throughout the United States. They're in almost all cities, counties have them. Largo, Dunedin, Safety Harbor, St. Pete, and of course, we've had them since 1983. What are impact fees based on? A community must do an impact fee study and base them on your current situation. And obviously, we haven't done that in a while, so we need to look at, and that's why we hired the firm of Benish, which was formerly Tyndall Oliver, to look at the city, look at the population, look at the growth, look at all of the facilities that we had at this current time, and then put forth a recommendation for being able to maintain that standard in the future. And so we did hire them. They gave us the report. What will the impact fees be used for? Basically to purchase new land and to purchase new facilities. It can't be used to just renovate existing facilities or repair them. Who governs this? The state of Florida basically has restrictions on it, how you can do it, and what is allowed and what's not allowed. Who pays the impact fees? Any new residential development constructed in the city limits of Clearwater or any residential property of 8 units or more to be annexed into the city will pay an impact fee. How much is the impact fee? You can see there's a whole chart. It varies. It depends on the size of your home. It depends on whether or not it's multifamily, whether it's a mobile home, age restricted, whether it's affordable housing, and you can see the chart there of the different fees that will be charged. When are impact fees paid? Basically, it's paid as a condition of your certificate of occupancy. In other words, you cannot go into your home or your condo until you pay this fee. Are there any exemptions? Yes, there are. The exemptions are there. There's for if you're altering your home, if you're building accessory buildings, if you're replacing a destroyed dwelling or home. Any single-family affordable housing dwelling units will not have to pay this. Annexations of 7 units or less will not have to pay this. We still want to encourage annexations into the city to become very good city taxpayers as well. Credit is given for any previous dwelling units that were on the property. For instance, if you were going and you saw a piece of property, you wanted to build a new home there, you go into the records and there was a home previously there, no matter when, 30s, 40s, 50s, you can prove it, then you basically get a credit for that and you won't have to pay an impact fee. There's a 50% discount to the affordable multifamily dwelling units and duplexes. I know that's a lot to take in, and I apologize that I didn't get it to you sooner than that, but I wanted you to be aware of that. That's kind of what an impact fee is. Just to talk about where we are now in the current ordinance. Right now, there are 3 fees that a developer would have to pay. They have to pay an open space fee, a recreation facility land fee, and a recreation facility fee. 3 different fees. The first 2 fees have to do with land, the value of their land. If their land, the idea is the land goes up over time, or if you're in a certain area like the beach, the value of that land's very high. So you would assess them on the value of the land. And basically then the idea is that the city would have to buy land on the beach as well. See? So that's the premise of it. That worked well in '83 when there's a lot of land that was out there. There's not much land anymore, and we need to change our thrust, and that's what this ordinance will do. It gets rid of those first 2 fees. The other fee was just a facility fee. It was $200 back in '83. We've not increased that for this many years, so that basically will be the big increase there. So it's going from 3 fees to 1 fee, makes it much simpler for everybody. The fees collected are restricted in their use currently. You can only use it within a mile for a neighborhood park, 2 miles for a community park, or anywhere in the city for a citywide facility or resource-based park. The idea there was to localize where those fees were collected, you could spend them there. And that worked well, again, at the beginning of this, because there were a lot of development. So you could put that money together, cobble it together, and purchase a park, build a park. Since then, that's not the way developments are coming in right now. So basically what this new ordinance does is it allows the fees or the money collected to be spent anywhere within one district, which is the city of Clearwater. So you can be used anywhere in the city of Clearwater for impact fees. Number next, the affordable housing units are charged the same rate that other residential units. That's in the current ordinance now. As you've seen in the new ordinance, we are not charging, because I know there's a very big push to help in the affordable housing area. This is going to help in that regard. There'll be no fees for that, 50% for multifamily fees. The next difference is currently there's an exemption given to all projects that are constructed within the CRA, or the Community Redevelopment Agency. That's downtown. That's the area we're in now. And the downtown street as you go out Cleveland Street. They have been exempt from 1983 from paying any impact fees. We are, in the new ordinance, we are proposing to eliminate that. So that, because we believe there's going to be a boom downtown, we believe people are going to move here, business will move here, and they're going to need to pay their fair share as they come in to town. So that is going to be eliminated. And then the last thing that's different, the payment of fees right now is no later than when the vertical building permit is issued. That means they got to pay it up front, so to speak. In the new ordinance, we're allowing them to pay it in kind of in arrears just before they get the CO. So I know that's a lot to take in, but I wanted to share that with you before, because I know we won't have another meeting before the council looks at this and considers it, and I wanted you to be aware of it. I can give you any additional information you might want on it, but in the meantime, if there are any questions I can answer.
I did have one, I want to make sure I just understood it correctly, is that the fees that are collected under this new ordinance, if you will, can be spent anywhere in the city as opposed to in previously where they were in the neighborhood. The question I have, are those impact fees still restricted to acquiring new land and new facilities, or can it be used for renovating?
Be used for anything.
Anything, okay.
Be used for anything. And in the study, we are keeping our level of service, LOS, the same. Our level here is, of course, 4 acres per 1,000 people. However, we've been blessed with so many parklands that we're up to over almost 8 acres per 1,000. And if you use my figures, it's like 12 or 13 acres. But I count a lot of things that the people that did the plan don't count. They don't count, submerged land, swamps. Everybody wants to give you property, and they want to give you a swamp as part of it. But we've got a lot of that we count, and because those are parks to me. They want to preserve them just like anything else. Any other questions?
And the timetable for presenting this to the council is?
Well, we hope to go to the Community Development Board next month, which is their meeting. You know what, I'm going to email you the dates.
Okay.
Specific dates on that. And then if it goes through the Community Development Board, then it'll be in the, April meeting.
April meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Okay. And any questions at all for the director on his report then? Last item on the agenda is for board members to be heard on any topic, and I'll start with Martin at the far left and go around the dais.
I don't have anything to do.
I don't have anything else.
Ellie? I have two items I'd like to bring up if I could. Number one, just to make sure I understood, because I was unable to attend the October meeting that I believe was canceled anyway. Did the council chair make, I beg your pardon, did the board chair make a presentation to the council in November, like we did last year, of the activities of the board through the year of 2022?
Yes.
They did, okay. And then the last thing I want to comment upon is, speaking for myself on Mr. Halio's departure. I joined the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board about the same time as Jim took over as the Director of Parks and Recreation, and over the time that I've been on the board, I have been educated and well-informed of the vast responsibilities and facilities that we have within the Parks and Recreation Department, and the very fine job that they do maintaining those facilities and providing recreation to the citizens of Clearwater. That has all been due to the leadership and effective management of Parks and Recreation by Jim. I wish him well on his new endeavor. I appreciate the education he's given me and the work he's done with the board as we went through various issues, and I appreciate his activities with many challenges in managing the many activities of Parks and Recreation. I wish him well, and I thank him for his service. If there are no further items, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. This meeting is adjourned.